program is being presented by the Indy Dental Group. Indy500 veteran Dr. Jack Miller and his wife Dr. Liz Lewis have a phenomenal practice. They're now up to 6 offices. If you need dental work, you think you haven't had any check lately, you need to check them out. Give them a call, make an appointment. The number is 317-846-6125. Their main office is at 92nd and Meridian. It's easy to get to off the interstate. If you need dental work or you haven't had a check them out. Need insurance? VP Insurance is the place to go. They're located at 5004 West 16th Street, about a mile straight west of the Speedway. You can talk to Mike Pardee or Tom, find out what you need, they'll help you out. And I've been with them for over 30 years, and every time I check, like the insurance commissioner says, they're the best. Give them a call, the number is 317-248-0070. SVRA, what a phenomenal organization it is. They got the F3 and the F4 series now, run by Scott Goodyear. They have brought back the Trans Am series to bigger than what it used to be. It's phenomenal. Want to find out where they're performing or what events are? Go to svra.com and you'll be glad you did. They got sports cars, vintage sports cars. They got the Trans Am, they got the F3 and the F4. They got a full weekend when you go see them. Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2024 show. I'm your host, Don Kay, and we are coming to you tonight from a place we spent a number of years at, McGilvery's in Speedway. We're here just for tonight, and I have some very special guests coming in that I think you will find interesting. My first guest sitting next to me, I will embarrass him to say he's a friend, has been for a number of years. And the number of years isn't quite as many years as he has spent officiating open wheel racing. He started out with USAC, went to the Indy Racing League, was with IndyCar, and he has spent 55 years in the sport. So he's got to have some very interesting things to say, I hope. And I'll try and pry him out of him. Please welcome my friend, Mr. Steve Jordan.
Thank you very much, Don. Thank you.
What got you into motorsports? I mean, you came from a business background. Your father and yourself had a very successful business, but what got you into motorsports?
Well, I think it really started as a kid. I was talking to Andy O'Gara the other day with Whiteland Raceway Park, and I was laughing and telling him that I was running go-karts down there in 1958. So he went, "Oh my God!" You know. But as a kid, I just enjoyed racing. My dad was involved with racing. He was, as a young guy, he built race cars for the Indianapolis 500 and hung around with his uncle, who was a riding mechanic back in the 30s and was killed in 33 in the race. So when I came along in 1949 and grew up, I just kind of liked racing, and I think when it gets into your blood, you're done. You know, it's going to be there for life.
What was the first job you had? I think you started out in USAC. What was the first job you had with USAC?
In '69 was the first race that I actually was an official, and it was really kind of, you know, I don't even know how to explain it, but my dad had come home and he said, "Hey, we need some runners, some grunt people for the race, and it'd be a good way to get your foot in the door." I said, well, heck yeah. So race day, I was put on one of the telecommunication boxes back on the back of the pit wall, you know, the pit on the fence, and absolutely did nothing. I mean, there wasn't anything to do. And I thought, I don't know about this. But anyway, I then would run pit stop sheets up to the starting line, because back in those days, there weren't the electronics that we have today and all the timing and scoring that we have today. So it was all done manually. So when a car would come in, the pit official would actually fill out a ticket, and that ticket then would be run up to the starting line, where they would keep everything in line per car, so they knew what was going on during the race and after the race. And that's really kind of how I started.
And you progressed from there to when USAC no longer sponsored or sanctioned the race, you moved on to the Indy Racing League?
Yes. When we had the split with CART, they had asked me to come over to CART, and I, at that time, said no, that if I'm going to officiate one race a year, it's going to be the biggest one. It's going to be the Indianapolis 500 and no other race. So I stayed with USAC, and CART went their way, and we did our thing, and IRL was there, and I was asked to stay with CART, or with Indy Racing League. And by that time, I had already learned a lot of the stuff through the people that I dealt with in USAC. A lot of riding mechanics became officials, especially on the tech committee. So learning to inspect the race cars, look for different things that were positive and not positive on cars. Nicely way of saying that some of them would try to cheat. Well, they don't do that, but so I just stayed with IRL, and we had a fun time back in those days. That was grassroots open wheel racing. You know, all the teams helped each other. You know, it's like somebody needed whatever. You know, another team was right there, Johnny on the spot. You know, well, here it is. Just give it back to me after the damn race is over. You know, I need it back. So it was just a great fun time. I think some of our races we kind of looked kind of stupid maybe, but we weren't the stars with the cars in Michigan and crash. So we did get that race on and get it going, that 500 that year, and everything progressed from there.
Well, you became a little more important, so to speak, in the pit lane during the race when you're with Indy Racing League and now with IndyCar. But you have been elevated in IndyCar from the pit area up on the roof where it's nice and windy and cold. And
yeah,
sometimes.
Yeah, I work with the spotters on the roof at the ovals, and I'm in communication with race control. But I don't know if it's an elevation. I think that's just getting an old guy up out of the way so he didn't get hurt. But it's okay. It's an important job, only to the fact that you have to be very diplomatic, because the spotters are the eyes for the drivers, because the drivers honestly can't not see very much out of the race cars. So they're helping them traverse through traffic and run races. And a lot of times they do get very heated because they feel like the driver that they're spotting for, who they've become friends with, that driver's life is in their hands. And a lot of times it is. So if there's something going sideways that they don't really like, they're going to come to me and start yelling and bitching. And then I've got to kind of evaluate whether it's worthy of getting involved or getting race control involved.
Some of the guys that you picked up what you needed to do were like Frankie Delroy, who was without question one of the real super guys in the series. He looked a little strange the way he dressed, but don't cross him.
No, you know, Frankie was the technical director for USAC when I came in. Actually, he's the one that he sent me a letter in the winter of 1970 saying, you know, hey, you know, your dad and some of the other guys really would like, and I would like for you to be on the technical committee. And I told him at the time, I said, you know, Frankie, I'm still in college and I'm only 18 years old. And he goes, oh, to hell with it. He said, the Rathmans lied about their age for years. And he said, we'll take care of that, don't worry about it. So I was like, okay. So, yeah, I was 18 when I started, and Frankie took a liking to me, I think, and kind of took me in his wing, and we had some good times. Even at 18 years old, it was like, wow, this guy really knows what he's doing. And even did some partying back in Pocono days.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Frankie did that? I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was from that area.
Oh, was he?
And so he knew all the back in the woods restaurants that were, I think they had stills out in the back or something, but great steaks, great food. And whenever he walked in, he was the king and ambassador of the area. So there were a few of us that had some good times with Frankie. But you didn't want to mess with him. You know, when it came to racing, it was his way or the highway.
When you were in the tech committee, I'm sure that you didn't ever find any cars that somebody had tried to alter away from the rules, did you?
Never.
Yeah.
No. Of course we did.
Yeah.
You know, it's, you know, I'm not giving away secrets, but they all try to push the envelope, you know, bend the rules. And, you know, Floyd always said it, you know, they ain't cheating if you don't get caught. So it's like, yeah, you're right. He and I've had a couple nose-to-noses over the years, and, you know, away from the racetrack, we've sat and had a couple glasses of wine together and ate steaks together. And that's the way he is, but when he's at the racetrack, don't get in his way. But other teams, yeah, I became a rear wing specialist with IndyCar, and my job in inspecting the race cars was basically the rear end of the car and the wings, because that's one of the primary areas that they try to bend the rules, because they're trying to get the wing out of the air, and the only way they can do that with all the rules that we have is to try to cheat. And yeah, over the years, yeah, we've caught some.
Are you the one that leaned on one wing and then
Yeah.
kind of collapsed and you said,
Yeah, I did.
wait a minute, there's
Yeah.
supports that are supposed to be in here, where are you?
It was, we have probably all of you know, but we have an inspection platform where we roll the cars up on the platform, and that's our ground zero. And the weighing, you know, we can weigh the car from there. The hard points of the car are our ground zero, so all of our measurements come off of the platform. And at that period of time that you're talking about, I needed a new hip, and Shine wouldn't operate. So for me to get around, it was kind of tough, and I would pull on the rear wing to step up on the platform. And I did that on one car, and when I pulled up on the wing went, you know, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, we got a problem here, boys, you know, okay. So it was, you know, a cripple that actually found it, me.
Who was it? Don't mention it. Because the one,
You know, I've had to sign disclaimer papers over the years, so, you know, but, yeah, you know, there's been all kinds of things. There was one that I caught, and it was in Chicago years ago, that was really pretty disturbing, and I can't really go into who it was, but the engineers had manufactured, the wings are held on by two struts on the back of the car, and where they attach to the wing, it's static, it's permanent. Well, they designed a gadget to go in there to replace the wing being static. So theory was that when they were running at speed, the wing would absolutely go down, would go backwards and down, getting the wing out of the air, so they could go faster and have less drag. And my crippled body was another time. That's, you know, I caught him there, you know, on Rocket over the years. He's always kidded me. He's like, boy, now that you got your head fixed, you can't find anything wrong, can you? But, so yeah, I reached up to get up on the platform and found that wing. But the one you're talking about, it was after the race. We hadn't caught it, and I was helping push the car back to tech. When I pushed on the rear wing, the back of the rear wing just kind of went poof. And I was like, we've got a real problem now because the race is over. So yeah.
did you ever catch anybody putting nitrous in the car?
Yes.
Yeah, because I know, I worked for a team that did
I know you
that.
did. Yeah, yeah. They used to put dry ice in the fuel tanks. You know, that would help a little bit. But then teams got to the point where, you know, even out on pit lane, Tech is responsible for their fuel refueling tanks. And we started catching teams who would put a false bottom on the tank so that they could, internally, the tank was on an angle so the fuel would dive down to the hose faster. And the faster you can get fuel in the car, the quicker you can get in and out of the car. So we found teams that would make false bottoms in the tanks. And one year, because I was back then, I'm not now, but back then I was little, so one of my jobs was to get in the tanks. You know, I had to go up through, now Frankie had me doing all kinds of stuff, and I had to go up through the top hole down and inspect the tanks, and that's where we kind of found some of that stuff going on.
And that's disgusting.
Oh, go ahead, yeah.
Innovative.
I know.
In fact, one of the teams I drove for, or worked for, the driver was told by the owner to put a wedge in the pop-off.
Yeah.
And when you finished your 3 laps, as you come to turn 3, yank the string and just go. Psh. Well, they knew he did it, but they never found what he had in there. They saw the scratches on the pop-off.
The pop-off valve, yeah. You know, that was, for years, the pop-off valve was quite an instrument of trying to cheat with. And we caught some. And it was just one of those things that they tried to override because that was, you know, giving the, you know, if they could override it, they could increase their boost on the engine. So, yeah, there were things that went on that way. You know, they would ingeniously figure out ways to get more fuel in the car. One team took the fire bottle, and instead of it being a fire bottle, they had fuel in the fire bottle. Well, that's real smart. You know, it's right underneath the crotch of the driver, and they got fuel in it. That's a good way to become sterile if something happens, you know. But you know, there was it's been a good ride. I mean, you know, there's times I've gone home and I've told my wife, it's like, well, you just can't believe this shit today. You know, it's like what we found today, and it's a lot of fun.
It's too bad Smokey Unick wasn't around and allowed to stay or stayed in longer, because I remember the story, I think it was in NASCAR. They had his car in for inspection. They took the fuel out of it.
Right.
And they wouldn't let him run. So no, you can't do that. So what does he do? He gets in the car, drives it all the way back to the shop. Where was the fuel? That's what they're trying to find.
It was in the tube frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
These guys are clever. You're back now, and you're doing, at least this season, your 55th year going to all the oval tracks. Are you happy to be back?
That's a good question. I retired from traveling after the 2016 season, and only did Indianapolis because my 2 granddaughters started racing quarter midgets and go-karts, so I was spending a lot of that time cheating, you know, with them. Well, yeah, we got caught a few times. She won, and I got to brag. We were at the Battle of the Brickyard in the quarter midgets, and here we were, a little team, and the Weldon boys showed up with their big transporter and their handlers and their, you know, their tuners and everything, and it's like, oh yeah, okay. Well, my little granddaughter spanked their asses on the racetrack, and she won the feature. So we were real proud about it, but I had forgotten that I had, in practice, made the motor illegal. And so when it went through tech, it was found to be illegal, so we got disqualified. And I cried. She didn't, but I cried. And she said, Papa, that's all right. Put the right motor in and I'll still kick your asses. So, you know, that's the way she was. But so, yeah, I retired in 16, and then I just did Indy. And this winter, they came to me and asked me that some of the spotters had requested that I be up on the roof, that they could get along with me, and they wouldn't throw me off the roof, or I wouldn't throw them off the roof. So they talked me into traveling again and doing the ovals.
Well, fortunately, because of that, it's going to break you back because you're doing some testing as well.
Yeah.
You're coming from Florida back here for a couple of weeks, and we're going to get to see you when you're here, so that worked out well.
Yes.
You know, there's something interesting about, in my opinion, motorsports. For one thing, most all of the professional sports like the NFL and the NBA and Major League Baseball, there's problems. The players get involved in stuff that puts them in court, puts them in trouble. But in IndyCar and open wheel, even in the sprints and midgets and stuff, you don't find that. I only know 3 guys that got legal trouble for something they did. One of them was because he did what Daddy told him to do, and he ended up in trouble. And 2 brothers that got caught. But aside from that, you don't hear of anything. When I first started following racing, there was nothing to go watch a race, go in the pit area after the race, and some guy would come up to another driver and say, "This is what the hell you did to me," blah, blah, and they're fighting. Well, you get to the motel and they're trading parts so they can go race again tonight, the next night.
Yeah.
That always fascinated me that, you know, things didn't go well on the track and they'd argue it, but when they got back to the motel working on the cars, they'd trade parts if they needed.
Well, you know, I think that back, you know, when I started, you know, and even before that, you know, with my dad, because I was a track, I mean, I just hung around the track all the time and get kicked out of the garages and sneak back in, kicked out. But I think back in those days, my first race, being at the race, was in 1955. I was 6 years old, and I've been to every single 500 since 1955. Yeah, it's, you know, I don't get a gold watch for it or anything. It's just one of these things that, God, I love racing. Oh, I love it. And I think back in the 60s, I hung around a lot of the drivers and mechanics, and it was a good old boy syndrome back then. You know, it really was. If you needed help, you know, you could call anybody and they'd help. This chief mechanic needed help. He could call whomever and get help. And the drivers were the same way. And I think that camaraderie has been lost today because the big corporate money's come in. And due to that corporate money coming in, it's become much, much more business oriented. And now everybody's got to watch what they say. There's certain things that they can't talk about, or they won't talk about, or it's so guarded today. So it's not as much fun as it used to be.
Well, back in the 60s and 70s, and even into the early 80s, for an IndyCar driver to run the Hoosier 100 the night before the 500 was not unusual at all.
Oh, no.
AJ'd run, Al Senior, Bobby, they all used to run open wheel midgets and primarily sprints and Silver Crown cars, but they were out running all the time. Now, the corporations won't let them do that.
No,
I mean,
no.
Ed Carpenter was one of the last that I know of who ran the Hoosier 100. I almost won it the last time.
Right.
And I've asked him several times, would you like to be back in the short tracks? Oh yeah, but they can't do it. It's not the same anymore.
You know, I guess I'm living in the past, but I would love to see, to win a championship, that you would have to run dirt. Back in you know, the days of the 60s and early 70s when, you know, you had Pernelli Jones and Herbies and Andretti and Don Branson and Judd Larson, all these guys running. Well, they had to run dirt to be viable to win the championship. And today, you know, I was like, I can't run dirt. Well, put your big boy pants on and go run dirt. I wish it was there again. I really do.
Yeah. The only one that's run dirt recently that I know of is Connor Daly.
Connor Daly has.
C39. What do you think they say that the track is almost a sellout, and to me, it's got to be Kyle Larson's drawing a lot of people in to see what he could do.
I definitely believe that.
And believe it or not, I think he's got a shot at it. He's won everything else he's ever gotten into.
You know, we had last month. We were supposed to have a 2-day test here, but we got rained out the second day, and the first day, when Kyle ran, I was talking with his spotter, and I was watching his lines, his entries, and exits out of the one, coming into one, coming out of one, and I thought that he'd been racing for 10 years around here. I mean, he was just. And then I talked to some of the guys back in the garage afterwards, and they said, you know, God, this guy, I mean, it's like a glove. You know, it's just so easy for him.
Well, I had him on the program early on when he was here running USAC. Of course, you never touch him now with a 10-foot pole. But he'd, on an off weekend, he'd run World of Outlaws on the dirt in a wing sprint car and win.
Oh, yeah.
That could win at anything, so I think it'll be kind of interesting to see how he does.
Well, you know, I think everybody knows that the Speedway, the 500 picks the winner, the track does. And there's a lot of luck involved every year. But I think if all those cards come together for Kyle Larson, you can see him in the winner's circle.
I wouldn't be surprised. So listen, it's your 55th year of doing this, being at the Speedway. I think that's remarkable. The only one I know that's beaten you from 55 is the guy that got me into this sport in the first place, who'll be here for the next program on the 29th. He's been here since 1952. And he sat in the Tower Terrace, and as they expanded it down toward turn 4, he stayed right there.
Sure.
He's been sitting there, so, and he talked me into it, and I'm sure people around here are sad because I'm still here. I haven't quit yet.
Well, you know, it's funny, very quickly, Sunday, my daughter and I, of course it's Mother's Day, and I'm with my daughter at Beacom. Talk about your head. But we were talking, and she's always been a track hound too. And she said, Dad, this is your 55th year, right? I said, yeah. She said, you're gonna be 75 in June? Yeah. She said, well, Clint Timmis, he worked until he was 80. And that would give you 60 years. You think you could make that? I said, no, I don't know if I'll even be alive in 5 more years, but I'll give it a try because I love it that much.
Well, I'll tell you what, I've always admired how you handle people, because one of the things I do is stand around and listen. I'm real good at standing around, and I can hear pretty well. And I think what you do and the way you talk to people and how you react when they kind of want to bite you in the head, you handle it, calm it down, and when they walk away, they understand what you were saying and how you're doing it. And I appreciate you taking the time to come here tonight, because you're at the track. They shut down at 2:30. You've been hanging around here since then.
Well, I could have gotten drunk sitting here drinking from 2:30, couldn't I?
Yeah, that's what I was afraid of.
No, you know, it's all those race car drivers have got big egos. Every one of them. Always, all of them have them. And the chief mechanics do too. And so to deal with them, you have to realize that, and you have to kind of, in your own way, make them see your way by pampering them in a way that you can guide them to where you want them to go. So that's kind of the art of that I've learned over the years.
You've learned it well, and well enough that some of them even wanted your back, which kind of astounded me.
Yeah, I was very, you know, I was speechless about that.
Well, I thank you for your time. Thank you for what you've done for 55 years, and I agree with with your daughter, if you could stay for another 5, make it. Why not?
Well, I don't know. If Glenn can do it, by God, I can do it.
That's what he said.
Thanks, everybody.
Our friend Steve Jordan. Our next guest is on his way up here. He is the one of the writers for TracksideOnline.com, and if you haven't subscribed to that, you're making a mistake. Trackside Online has all the information. If you want to know what teams are thinking, what their team PR is, Trackside will tell you. They get all the PR from all the race teams, and they publish it, and you can get it. And it's the last I knew it was $25 a year. I don't know if it's gone up much from there.
No, it's $22 a year.
$22 a year is even better. So as good as it. No, that's. So I invited them because you're now also. Well, first of all, my guest is Steve Wittich from TracksideOnline.com. And you are now working with NBC, are you not?
Yes. Second half of the year I spend with NBC. First half I spend with Trackside Online. So get the best of both worlds. I get to do some writing, which I still enjoy, and then I move into the TV truck for the second half of the year and work with the pit reporters and all the cameras down there. So a little bit different viewpoint, but definitely one I enjoy.
What got you started writing, and particularly writing about motorsports?
Long story, like everybody else. My dad was a huge race guy, and I grew up in a small town in Ontario called Hanover, and don't know if a lot of you probably remember the name Alec Purdy as an engineer. Built Formula Ford called the Ferret many years ago. My dad was really good friends with him and the guys he raced with. So that's kind of what got me into it. They took me along to the track to Motorsport when I was, really small, and I've been enjoying it and loving it ever since. And I moved down here to go to school in '95 and spent a few years outside of motorsport, but then maybe almost 20 years ago now, I got into the writing side of things, and I've been doing that ever since, and started doing the TV side about 5 or 6 years ago.
As a writer, you get to tour the pit garages and pit area and paddock and all that kind of thing, pick up stories. Are you still able to do that when you're in the TV booth?
I do a little bit still, yeah, I definitely do. I try and help out the pit reporters a little bit and try and find some stories for them. Not as much time spent in the paddock as when I'm doing the TV stuff, but no, I try and make sure that I spend Thursday and a good part of Friday in the paddock still talking to people, because it's the only way. It's how you learn what's going on and keep the pulse of the sport.
What do you find is good this year? What's grabbed your attention? Said, wow, this is really something. What's the newest exciting thing for the series?
Well, we're not, since there's someone from tech here, we're not going to talk about the Penske stuff, and the Penske people aren't really happy with me right now, but we'll discuss that some other time. No, that's been an interesting story for sure. I've got to give IndyCar a lot of credit for dealing with it the way they have. Not an easy situation. I think, DQing someone from a win it's been a long time since that's happened, so to see them do that's a really big move, and for Roger to suspend a few of his really top people is a big deal. I know he wasn't really happy about what happened, so that's probably the big story right now. I wish it would kind of start to go away as we're getting into the month of May. You guys talked about Kyle Larson, absolutely huge story on what he's going to be able to do this month, and I just think I think it's going to be an interesting month of May. It's I'm not a fan of shortening the month down, but in some ways it makes things a little more interesting because it doesn't give the teams as much time. In racing, cubic dollars equals speed, and the more time you have, the more money the bigger teams can spend, the faster they go. So I think sometimes shortening things down actually makes things a little bit better.
What do you think of Alex Palou?
I was actually just working on some stats from what he's done over the last few years. I think what I figured out, since he moved to Ganassi, his average finish is 6, and in the last year and a half, it's 3.5, which to me is just Like, I mean, it's been 22 races since he finished outside the top 8. In a field like what we've got right now, that's incredible. And it's credit to him and his team both, because, you know, it's the car is run, the car is good. He qualifies well. They don't make mistakes on pit road. I don't think people understand how hard that is, or how improbable that is for him to be able to do that. And part of it's him, and obviously part of it's the crew. It's a good group around him.
And they have a guy that drives, and I had Mike Hall a couple weeks ago, and he said all the drivers share.
Yeah,
And
they
to be
do.
able to share with Scott Dixon, who was the second most winning driver in the history of the sport. He's a 6-time series champion. He's a 500 winner. And to be able to get information from him, and then he go out and beat him.
Yeah, no, it is. It's really it's really impressive. No, and I know Alex works really hard at it. There's nobody gonna outwork him, and I think a lot of that comes from watching Scott, because there's nobody that outworks Scott. Like, I mean, Scott's in the shop as much as possible, and I know Alex is there constantly as well. So I think that, you know, if you're gonna look at drivers to emulate, if you're a young driver, it's those guys that they non-stop in the shop, spending time, whether it's with their engineers, whether it's with their crew guys, it doesn't matter. It's just being with the guys in the shop and learning and building that rapport. You know, we talked about their pit stops are good, and part of that's built by being in the shop and getting to know your crew guys, because we all know, what are we going to do? We're going to work harder for our friends and the people we like, right? And the people who support us. So you look at that team, and that's sort of the way that one works.
That's the way Mike wants it.
It is. It's always the way Mike wants it.
And that's the way Chip wants it, because he wants to win.
Yeah. Yes. Chip, as he says, Chip likes winners. So.
Yeah. And he seems to come up with them.
Yes. Yeah, he does.
So it's quite amazing. And the Palou story with Errol McLaren, that's kind of a strange thing. And I haven't heard anything recently about where that stands, unless it's been solved.
It hasn't been solved yet, but I think it's getting closer. I believe it's in media. The last stuff I could pull, it's hard. It's in court in the UK, which makes it harder. Like, stuff's in court here, I can get it online and find what I need to find. But in the UK, it's a little bit harder, and I haven't been able to find much recently, but I think it was in mediation. So I think it's probably closer to getting solved. But if you ask Alex about it, he'll say, "Oh, it's something I can't talk about because it's something it's in courts."
Yeah, no doubt. And that's as it should be, of course.
Who's calling you, Don?
I have no idea. I probably got to take a pill. Not sure. How big is Trackside? How many subscribers have you got?
We're in the probably about 2,000 range right now, which is a good number for us. It's kind of keeps us where we need to be on getting to the races, and we'd always want more, but we figure we cater to sort of the hardcore fans, and like I said, I broke one of the parts of the Penske story recently, so that was definitely good for our subscriber base. That brought a few new ones on board, and we just keep kind of adding, and each year just keep adding a little more, and I'd like to get it to the point where I could add a few more writers. Right now it's Patrick and myself, and I think Tony DeZino will come in for part of May this year again to help out, but I'd like to add a few more, but it's a matter of getting the subscribers.
Well, as I said before, as you were coming up here, if anybody, I've had people ask me, what's going on with such and such a team? I said, you know how you find out? Subscribe to Trackside, because they get all the PR from all the teams, and they publish it. So you can see what they're doing, who they're doing it with, and to. And for $22, you can't go wrong.
No, and we cover every, I think we've missed one race since 1996, Trackside Online. I think we missed Texas in 2020 was the only one we haven't had at least one person at. So we always try and have someone on the ground and try and get you the inside stories when we can, and try and get you the some of the rumors. I don't deal a whole lot in rumors like some people, but I try once in a while. We'll get into that stuff.
You also cover the Road to Indy program.
Yeah, I try to. Not quite as much this year. Still doing a lot of really focusing on Indy Next for the Road to Indy side of things this year. I think it's that program. It's good to see it come back alive, and and you know, having 21 cars is awesome, and it's a deep field. You know, you've got a lot of really good drivers, and I think you get a lot of really good IndyCar potential in that field.
And that's a problem, because we got some very good drivers who, when they get the scholarship to move up, there's no place to move.
No, there's guys, you know, we talk about Dixon and Power, and like those guys are still driving at such a high level. It's hard to, you know, and as I get older, I sure don't want to get aged out of stuff. So, you know, when I was younger, I'm like, oh, get the old guys out of there. Now that I'm getting older, I'm like, no, I understand wanting to drive as long as they can. And I tell you what, like Power and Dixon, the level those guys are driving at is still incredible.
Oh, yeah, no question about it.
You know, so it's hard to say, hey, we need you to quit, but
Well, we have a member of a very accomplished team. It's gotten better over the years. It's getting even better now. He'll be up here in a minute. But I think the quality of teams in the next series by Firestone, when you watch them and you see them on television, you don't have to wait, 15, 18 seconds for the tail of the field to come up, because they're all pretty well bunched together.
no, it's a really tight field this year, and it's like you said, the teams are, there was a point in the road to Indy, and not in a while, but there was a point in Indy Next, or when it was called Indy Lights or Infinity Pro, there's kind of a mix of pro teams and a little bit closer to club teams. There's no such thing even close to that anymore. Everybody runs at an IndyCar level team right now, so it makes for good competition.
And if you go over to Brownsburg to the old Marsh store, and it's now a race shop, and they have, 8 cars every...
10 cars.
10
now.
cars.
Yeah, 10 cars every weekend.
You got down there to half the field to start with.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they got some great shoes in that team, too.
They
Holy
do.
smoke.
Yeah, they definitely do. Yeah, no, there's all the teams have good shoes right now. It's a good mix of drivers, and I think this weekend everybody, last race all 3 teams were on the podium, so the big teams. So that's all you can ask for.
Yeah, well, it's going well.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up a member of one of the Red Hot teams currently. He's a manager for Able Motorsports. If I can get him to stand up and start walking this direction, I would appreciate it. Thanks.
Thanks.
You can say if you want to.
No, I'll go.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This gentleman is the team manager for Able Motorsports. And their primary, I use laughingly, their primary driver is Jacob Abel. In the 4 races they've had this year so far, he's only had 2 wins, 2 seconds, and 2 poles.
3.
3 poles, I'm sorry, I forgot the 3rd finger. I couldn't get it to work. Please welcome Mr. John Brunner. How hard has it been to take a team from 0 and build it to where you are now, and you're still moving up?
I've got good people, and some of the people came, have been working with me for years, so didn't feel like I was really starting from scratch. We have the ownership of the team is so strong and allowed us to grab some people right away that I knew would come with me. So it's been a fun journey.
It's got you. What seems to me as a team manager, you have to have an owner that's foot to the floor. If we're going to do this, let's do it to win. Let's not do it to just say we're there. And it seems to be Mr. Abel is providing that oomph to make it happen.
Yes, completely. You have to have someone that's willing to go for it. You need someone that's, a team owner that's patient as well as you're starting kind of a fresh team. Able Motorsports has been around for quite a few years, long before I got there, just not at this level, and that was his goal. That was the reason he brought me in. He wanted to get to this level, and he's been patient and allowed us to get here.
And it seems to me you've got at least one driver heading to the IndyCar next year. There was talk about doing it, entering him this year, I think, some talking, and that went away. But he wants to concentrate and win the title so he can get those scholarship and help that out a little bit.
Yeah, running him at the Indy500 this year really wasn't in our game plan at all. This year is focusing on trying to win the championship, and he is focused on that. Obviously, we're looking for a way to get him onto the IndyCar grid for next year. That's not the easiest task today with the rumored charter system. It's not really rumored, but no detail. But with the charter system coming, we don't have a great path to get there at this moment.
With any luck, that charter system might not happen. I hear they're having a little trouble getting it through, but I haven't heard anything recently. But you were working on a program to return with R.C. Enerson, and I was trying to help him come up with a sponsor, and I didn't do any better than they did. They struggled with getting it, so it's not going to happen. But you've got it. Mr. Abel bought a car, so you guys own, Abel Motorsports owns an Indy car.
Correct. We have a brand new Indy car sitting in our shop. We have the Enerson Indy car sitting in the shop. It just, a lot of people tried very hard to get back there this year, and we just couldn't get it done.
Well, I heard a rumor that one of your drivers has agreed to join you this evening.
That's correct.
A new driver with the team this year. It's a driver that participates in sprint car racing and has done very well. And now she's into the Next by Firestone series, and I think I'm going to invite her up. Please welcome Taylor Ferns. Now, strange as it might seem, there seems to be a lot of lady drivers around this year. I've talked to Kaylee Bison. I had McKenna Hasse on a month or two ago, and now I got you.
Yep. Nice to meet you.
My pleasure. We've been bonding for years.
Oh.
What got you into motorsports?
So I officially started racing when I was 6 years old.
Oh boy.
But I grew up in a motorsports family. My family, or my uncles on my maternal side, had raced late models and ARCA back in the 80s. And, oh, is this on? Maybe not. Maybe not. Can you hear me? Hello?
Okay.
So yeah, my uncles had raced late models in ARCA in the 80s and early 90s, so before I was born. So just kind of grew up around it. We celebrated Daytona 500s in my family like they were Super Bowls. And so, yeah, when I was 6, my dad and my uncle found a quarter midget for sale up in Lansing, Michigan. I'm from the Metro Detroit area. And
So are they.
oh, very cool. And yeah, it was like love at first sight. I just instant butterflies, and 22 years later, still here.
Yeah, that's what I say. 60 years later, I'm still here. How did you hook up with Abel Motorsports and John Brunner, besides that?
Yeah, so for the past couple years, obviously I'm like heavily involved with sprint car racing and USAC Silver Crown racing, and I've raced midgets, since I was 13, 14 years old. And so the past couple years, I realized at some point in my career I was gonna kind of want to go on and try something else. And when I was younger, I had tried going the stock car route, and didn't work out so well. So when I went sprint car racing. But as of recent, the past couple years, I was like, you know what? I think maybe IndyCar route is the route that I want to go now. And so, I'd quietly been attending Formula car races, Formula car tests, connecting with teams, and a lot of influencers like within the industry as far as like the path that I wanted to go, as far as like the Indy Next, IndyCar route. Should I start with Pro 2000 or F2000, or what I needed to do to kind of like set myself up in the best way for success. And, I got connected with John and the Abel group probably around December, January. They come highly recommended from a lot of influential people within the Indy Next IndyCar community. And yeah, we just like clicked right off the bat, I'd say. And so excited to see what we can do on the track.
It's amazing that John is helping Abel Motorsports move up. Because the first time I talked to him, I said, "You've spent a lot of years in IndyCar. I've had it. That's it. I'm going down to the Road to Indy program." So where did he end up last year? At the Speedway. Where are they looking to go next year? To the Speedway. Where does this lady want to go? To the Speedway. And John, I have a feeling I will see you in the pit area from time to time in the IndyCar Series events around the country.
That may be, I don't know.
You don't know.
I'm trying to win it. We're trying to win an Indy next
Oh, I
championship.
understand that. Well, what's the team like? Do you, all the drivers get along together? They all work together well?
I would say from my experience, you know, I attended the St. Pete race. That was my first time like formally meeting a lot of people at the team, but I went to Barber as well, and then I was also in town for the Indy GP, and so I feel like, you know, all the drivers connect really well, get along really well, and, you know, kind of like the ebbs and flows of a team, you know, they kind of all build off each other and, you know, learn from each other, and, you know, I think that's important. I think it's a really healthy working environment, and so, you know, I think that's obviously a super essential to help with on-track success.
Do the other drivers, when you ask a question, how do you handle this turn, or how do you do they tell you?
I mean, yeah, they'll give you recommendations. I'd say like maybe what they're doing or what they're trying out, and like maybe things that they tried that didn't work. And then also, you know, with a lot of the film that goes on like throughout the trailer and a lot of film that the drivers watch. From what I've seen, I haven't been as involved as of yet because I'm learning the road course stuff, and obviously I'm just racing the ovals, but you know, just being around the drivers and seeing the way that they connect with each other, so that way when I have my first race in July, it's not just, you know, like ripping the Band-Aid off. You know, I kind of already have that exposure to kind of like the work environment, so I can be as prepared as possible.
Have you tested yet?
Not yet.
Have you all put you in the car yet?
Not yet.
Gee.
Not yet.
You offered to put me in a car if I could get in it.
There hasn't been any test yet.
Oh, well, that's a good reason.
Yeah.
So while you're waiting to get in the car, what's your next events and what are you driving?
Yeah, so my next event, I'll be racing in Belleville, Kansas this Friday and Saturday in a dirt Silver Crown car. And then we come back next week, and then we race Carb Night or the Hoosier 100 at IRP in my USAC Silver Crown car. And then, yeah, continuing on into June, I have some sprint car races, some more Silver Crown races, and then that's kind of when we start testing the next car. So, you know, lots going on, but until then, I'm still racing.
Do you own your team?
Yes.
You're the team owner.
Yes.
You're a boss.
Yes.
Oh, boy. Do you get your own sponsorships?
Yes.
Who are your sponsors for your open wheel?
Bradford Allen, which they'll also be sponsoring, you know, my Indy Next endeavors as well. Also involved with a Mobile One, Car IQ, you know, a handful of other vendor and product sponsors, you know, that help keep me on the track. And so, you know, that's really obviously important. Otherwise, I couldn't do it without them.
That's true. Yeah. And who was the first one?
Bradford Allen.
Who's he?
So they are a commercial real estate development company based out of Chicago.
Great city.
Yeah.
Being based out of it is even better.
Yeah.
I'm from Chicago originally.
Oh, very cool.
John, you know what you have to me, and I'm going to speak about what I've watched you do, and she has said she talked to others in the paddock. Is Able Motorsports a good place to go? With John, yes. What is it about you? What do you love about the sport that you're able to perform and put things together and see what you need to win?
Well, it's easy now. I mean, I said it earlier. It's the people that are on this team. You know, I have Able Motorsports has unbelievable employees that are, you know, I've got 3 guys who've been with me for 12 years. A couple guys. When I'm sitting over there, Jacob Donahue. I forget how many years he called me.
Oh, there he is.
Tells me all the time. 10 really? 10 years. You know, I hired 3 guys in 2020 when I started. They're still with the team. You know, everybody stays, and we hire good people that know how to do their job, which makes my job easy.
Well, the same could be said at Ganassi with Mike Hull after 35 years being there. but you still have to have a guys that here's what we need, here's what we're going to accomplish, and then you have the guys that can do the job, they know what you're talking about. So I think, but it's kind of fun to watch, and of course, your current lead driver, I think he's leading the points if I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
Yeah.
Jacob is leading the points.
To keep up with him. Gee, I tried to get him, he had to go back to Louisville to hide. I asked him if his dad hired him as a laborer in the construction field, and I think he said no.
Well, he won a race on Friday, finished second on Saturday, pole for both days, but Sunday was Mother's Day. He needed to go
Oh,
home.
that's true, yeah, right. Good for him, he's a good guy.
He is a
And
good
he's a
guy.
very interesting guy. I'll get him on. He said, I want to do the program. I'll get him on. If you haven't seen him, he's been with us, I think, 2 or 3 times.
Yeah.
If you haven't seen him, you'll enjoy him. He's quite a character. To own your own team and run your own short track team, for lack of a better word, how much of your time is consumed keeping everybody together and everything together and getting it from here to there for the next race and all that kind of thing?
You know, I think it's a never-ending task, right? It's a 24/7, 365 job. You know, I think just to echo what John said, though, it's just all about having great people. You know, I've worked with my crew chief that I'm working with now since I was 12 years old, off and on. So that's about 16 years. And so, you know, we have a really strong relationship. And, you know, we just really work well together. And so, you know, we have that trust in each other and kind of, you know, pick up where the other leaves off. And so, you know, I honestly couldn't do it without him. I tell him that all the time. And so, you know, obviously I just graduated from law school yesterday.
Oh, really?
And so, yeah. And
Wow.
so obviously that took up a lot of my time as well. And so, you know, it's just also learning to delegate. And so I think, you know, by being surrounded by great people, you know, having trust in the people around you, I think that really makes the big difference.
Watch out, John, she's a lawyer.
I know. She's already talked to me about this. She told me she didn't know me that well when she signed her contract, but she said, I signed your contract, but your contract sucks. I'll help you with it later.
You as a team owner are like, and I'm sure you know McKenna Hasse, I'm sure you know her. She has done essentially the same thing. Build her own team, owns her own team, does her own marketing. She said, I went to college, she graduated summa cum laude from high school, went to college and took some finance courses. I said, obviously you stayed awake in class because she does her own business, her own sales as you're doing.
Yeah.
Does it make anybody nervous when you walk in and say, I've got a law degree? And they say, whoa, we better listen to it.
Yeah. No, for sure. I mean, they say a lot of like what you said or just echo your sentiments. I mean, yeah, when you say, oh, I have a bachelor's in business, I have my master's in business, I have a law degree, and then they're like, how do you find time to do all this stuff? And it's like, you know, just delegation and prioritizing and scheduling. And so, I mean, yeah, it probably is intimidating, but, you know, you do what you got to do to follow your passion.
Are you easy to get along with?
I think so.
Okay.
I think I'm pretty charismatic.
Okay. And your goal is to be on that thing that's at 16th in Georgetown that goes.
Yes, the Indy500.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah.
Are you?
Easy to forget.
Oh yeah. I've only been coming here since 63. So I've been to the place. I recognize it. You know, why is it there are more females now getting into the sport? In ownership, and I don't know how many women own their own team like you and McKenna do, but why are there more females getting into the sport? I mean, the woman, the next Jamie, what's her, I can't remember her name, Jamie something.
Jamie Chadwick.
Yeah, Chadwick, yeah, she finished third in one of the races, I
Yep.
believe.
Mm-hmm.
There's some good young women, which when you put a helmet on, it doesn't matter who you are. Can you reach the pedal and can you stab it?
Yeah.
Is what it counts, and you have what it takes to not hit you as I go by you, or you go by me. Why are there more females getting involved in the sport, do you think?
Well, I think for the most part, you know, just from my experience, you know, I've been doing this for 22 years. So I guess from like when I started when I was younger, you know, it's kind of all a numbers game, if you will. So when I started in quarter midgets, like let's just say maybe there was like 20% of the drivers in quarter midgets were females, right? Well, you have what you call like the funnel effect. So as you go up the rankings, I mean, regardless of gender, male or female, people are going to trickle out, like whether they're not interested anymore, whether they don't have the resources, so on and so forth. And so if you're already down on numbers from like the female scale goes and they're falling out at the same rate as the males do, well, when you finally get to the upper tiers of motorsports, you're going to only be down to 1 or 2. And so I think really the big thing is like starting at the root of motorsports. And like I actually went to a micro sprint race last summer, which is one of the series that I started racing in. And it was amazing because half of the drivers there, at least half, maybe 40 to 50%, give or take, were girls. And so I thought that was like a huge transition from when I was racing micro sprints 15 years ago. Because that it wasn't the same proportion, it was much lower. And so, you know, I think you see like as time goes on and like society evolves and more girls get to the upper echelon of motorsports, if you will, it'll show the younger generation that this is something that they can do, and then attract them at the lower levels of motorsports to where maybe we'll all get to a point to where we're all competing on at the same proportion.
When I got involved in sport, there was 2 females, and I worked with both of them, Janet Guthrie and Lynn St. James. And there was another gal from England who tried to qualify, I can't think of her name right offhand, tried to qualify, didn't make it. I'm sorry?
Desiree Wilson.
Yeah, Desiree Wilson. There's still one or 2 now. Catherine Legg for one has entered this year. But do you see that what you're doing, until you get into the car and testing, you probably won't be able to really tell. And what you're doing now in the sprints and Silver Crown cars you're driving, that training will transition when you move into the next series.
I think parts of it, yeah. You know, I'm not going to be like ignorant or naive to the fact that it's still going to be a transition, like knowing the fact that these are rear engine cars and what I come from, the sprint cars and the Silver Crown cars are front engine cars. And there's obviously some differences as far as like the next cars with the wing and the aero and how the air affects that wing and when you get into dirty air and clean air and things of that nature. But, you know, I've raced so many different cars throughout my career. I'm trying to like pull bits and pieces of what I know or what may help, and, you know, talking with the engineers at Able. And so, you know, I'm kind of like hoping that, you know, with my wing sprint car experience, you know, and how the air affects the wing in that regard, and pulling on a line and then being in the dirty air might kind of prepare me in some ways for the next car and how the car might handle in that way. And then also I've been trying to like analogize as far as like the USAC Silver Crown cars at the beginning of a 100-mile race. We have like almost 500 pounds of fuel behind us, and so maybe the car might handle in that way similar to a rear engine car. And so, you know, obviously doing a lot of work on the back end, you know, watching film, you know, working out with Pit Fit, everything that I can do to be as prepared as possible, so we can, you know, kind of be successful right off the bat. But it's still going to be a transition, no doubt.
You go up and see Jim Leo at Pit Fit?
Yeah.
Did you ever look at the plaques on the wall?
Yes.
Did you ever notice whose name was on top of almost every one of them?
Refresh my memory.
Scott Dixon.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's jumping jacks, push-ups, sit-ups, it doesn't matter. He's number 1 in all of it.
Yeah,
And
no,
still
he
is
is.
up there.
He is.
Well, listen, I'm very pleased that you were coming to town and that John said, take the pressure off me. Would you like to talk to us? I said, sure. She's available. And he called, texted me and said, you're available, so here you are. I wish you nothing but the best. I've read about you quite a bit over the years and never anticipated you would be here, but I'm happy that you took the time to stop by and say hello. So these people, and this program will be videotaped and put online in a few days, and a lot of people will get to see it and they'll get to know who you are.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Nice to have met you. And John has to take a pill. I see him looking at his watch all the time. He's got to take a pill. So do I, actually. So we'll say thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Both of you, John, thanks for coming and bringing this young lady along with you.
Yep.
And we wish you nothing but the best in the coming. And you know I'll pester you from time to time. Silly enough, you gave me your number, so I know how to find you.
Yeah, that was a weak moment.
Yeah, I know. So that's it for tonight. I want to say a big thank you to John Brunner, the manager of Able Motorsports, and the newest driver, Taylor Fern. Welcome and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Nice meeting you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, thank you. Take care. Thanks for having me.
Our next program will be back at Green Street on the 23rd of May, which is a Thursday night. I have a guest coming all the way from California. He's got more than 30 years of racing and owning teams at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Probably one of the most popular drivers over the years. And he will be there. I just talked to him and he said, yeah, can't wait to get there. I'm talking about none other than Mr. Dick Simon. If you've never met him, never seen him, never talked to him, you want to come out. That's the 23rd. And my other guest is going to be some guy by the name of Roger Ward Jr. So look for you to join us. I want to thank everybody for being here. Thanks for attending. And I want to mention Sharon, my honey pie, is here, and her daughter from Florida is up with her too, who is a 42-year nurse. Happy to see her. Please enjoy it. Until the next time, the 23rd of May at Green Street, Don Kay saying thanks for watching, thanks for listening. Until the next time, we'll see you.